Now, almost 48 hours after Joe Biden was declared US president-elect, incumbent Donald Trump is still refusing to concede defeat. Instead, he's pushing forward with unsubstantiated allegations of widespread voter fraud and asking the courts to intervene. But his hopes of reversing the result are narrowing as the former Republican President George W. Bush joins world leaders in publicly congratulating Mr. Biden. Our reporter Jack Parrick is following developments in Washington, D.C., and he says people in the United States are taking Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the election extremely seriously.
As we know, he has filed a flurry of lawsuits, especially in these crucial battleground states, to try and overturn, essentially, or get recounts or complain about how the votes were counted in order to try and turn the result of the election. We know that at least at this count, by my latest count, around 10 of those cases have now been thrown out by judges, but there are many more, and his team have been talking publicly all through the weekend about how this election, they believe, is a fraud. They've been making those unfounded claims. On the other side, right here outside the White House, there's been a ton of celebrations, and I spoke to some people earlier on today. It's been a weekend of celebrations here in Washington, D.C. for supporters of Joe Biden, who are delighted their man has been elected into the White House.
We are celebrating because Trump is leaving.
Yeah,
right?
Trump is a racist, and as black women in this country, we have to come and support because the majority of Americans voted him out of office.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy Biden won, and I hate Trump, so I just came to celebrate, I guess.
While it's 4 million fewer than for Biden, 70 million people still voted for the sitting president. Across the country, supporters of President Trump aren't only disappointed, many are refusing to accept the results of the election.
You look at it, and it's the press that called it, and it's fully proof that the press is manipulating and propagandizing this whole election. They're brainwashing people. You can see it clearly.
We're still in this fight. We're out here to be loud, to be heard, to demand transparency. And, we just want answers. There's a lot of questions still, and a lot of races are still very close that shouldn't be called.
Donald Trump's team continue to assert their unfounded allegations of voter fraud. No US president in the history of the country has refused to concede defeat once all the ballots have been counted. The question is, how does the United States react if Donald Trump doesn't do it? And so that question, Rosie, is essentially what happens if he doesn't concede this election? The Biden administration will have to take up office without that concession, potentially. We know that the media in America is the first organization to call the elections, and that the states call it 20 days after the election happens. So the question is, if the states, when they come out and call this election for Joe Biden, will Donald Trump leave the White House peacefully, and will he hand over the keys to Joe Biden in a sort of respectable way, essentially?
In the meantime, preparations get underway for Joe Biden. It's just over 2 months until the inauguration, and it will all change over. What do we know now of his plans and priorities?
We know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are sitting down with a group of scientists and experts. They'll start first thing this week, their first job, to put together a special task force to deal with the coronavirus. The pandemic has now seen 10 million cases in the United States and has claimed the best part of 250,000 lives here. And so what they say is that they absolutely must crack on and get on with dealing with the pandemic. They won't be able to do that until he's inaugurated on January the 20th. We also know that Joe Biden plans to return to the Paris Climate Change Accord. As soon as that happens, that there is an intention that they will return into the Iran nuclear deal that Donald Trump left. In the meantime, though, Donald Trump remains the president. And as I say, the question is, how will that changeover, this transitional period, play out with all of these legal challenges and with huge complaints from the Trump camp about the result of this election? All eyes will be on what they say and also on how their supporters react to what they say, Rosie.